December 14, 2014, from Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. It was the Oakland Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs in this AFC West Division rivalry matchup. The Oakland won the toss and they elected to defer. So now Kansas City would start off with the ball first on their own 21 for their first possession. They would end up going 3 and out and punting the ball from the 26. So now the Raiders would get the ball on their 12-yard line with 12 minutes left in the first. They'd be faced with a 3-and-1 from the 21, and Latavius Murray would pick up 3 yards in the first down that brought the ball to the 24. But then Derek Carr was sacked by Justin Houston. This Justin Houston adds to his league-leading total. And so now, after a couple more plays, the Raiders would end up punting the ball from the 27. So now the Chiefs would take over at midfield on their own 48 with about 8.5 minutes left in the first. They would pick up a first down on a penalty, but then they would end up stalling and have to punt the ball from the Oakland 39. So now Oakland would take over on their own 11-yard line with about 6 minutes left in the first. And on 3rd-and-1 from the 20, Derek Carr hit Michael Rivera. He picked up 5 yards in the first down at the 25. But they would end up having a punt, though, as they weren't able to pick up another first down. And they would punt from the 24. And on the punt, D'Anthony Thomas returns it 81 yards all the way for the touchdown off the punt return to put the first points on the scoreboard, with the score now Kansas City 7, Oakland 0. So now the Raiders would take back over with the ball on their own 17. Latavius Murray then ran for 25 yards in the first down, bringing the ball all the way to the Oakland 42. But their drive would end up stalling at the 50, and they would end up punting the ball back to Kansas City, who now took over with less than a minute left in the first. They had it on their own 13. Alex Smith then hit Avant for a 14-yard pass on a first down that brought the ball to the 27. Smith then went to Dwayne Bowe for an 11-yard reception that brought the ball to the 38 in the first quarter to a close. So now after one quarter of play, the score was Kansas City 7, Oakland 0. So now to begin the second quarter, the Chiefs would have the ball on their own 38. And on first down, Alex Smith went to Charles, but there was a defensive holding penalty. It was an incomplete pass, but the holding penalty now would give them a first down. And so now they would end up going Alex Smith to Travis Kelce for a 16-yard pass. It was another first down. And then on 3rd and 6 from the 42, Alex Smith went to Hammond, and it was a 7-yard reception to make it a first down on the Oakland 35. But their drive would end up stalling, and from the 26 on 4th and 1, they would bring out Cairo Santos to attempt a 44-yard field goal. It was up, and it was no good. And so the score remained Kansas City 7, Oakland 0. So now the Raiders would take over on their own 34 with a little less than 12 minutes left before halftime. And they would end up going 3 and out as they would punt the ball from their 36 to the Kansas City Chiefs, who now took over with less than 11 minutes left before halftime with the ball on their own 32. They would end up moving backwards because of a holding penalty. And then on 2nd and 9 from the 23, Alex Smith hit Wilson for a 48-yard reception that brought the ball across midfield and into Oakland territory at the 29 for the first down. But their drive would end up stalling at the 23, and out would come Cairo Santos to attempt a 41-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and now the Kansas City Chiefs had extended their lead to 10 with the score Kansas City 10, Oakland 0. So now the Raiders would get the ball with about 8 minutes left before halftime. They had it on their own 20, and they would end up going 3 and out yet again, this time having to punt from their own 23. And now the Kansas City Chiefs would take over on their own 40 with about 6.5 minutes left in the quarter. And on first down, Jamal Charles ran for 15 yards in the first down that brought the ball into Oakland territory at the 45. But their drive would stall on the Oakland 37 as they would bring out the punting unit. And so they punted the ball from the 37, and now Oakland would be pinned up against their own end zone on their own 6-yard line with less than 4 minutes left before halftime. They were then faced with a 2nd and 1 from the 15, and Latavius Murray ran at 3 yards for the first down that brought the ball to the 18. But they would end up moving backwards and having to punt from the 16. as they were unable to get any more first downs. So after the 2-minute warning, they punted the ball from the 16, and now the Chiefs would take over on their own 35 with less than 2 minutes left before halftime. They ended up picking up a first down. They ended up getting into Oakland territory on 2nd and 15 from the 35. Alex Smith hit Dwayne Bowe for a 37-yard reception that brought the ball to the 28. They ended up then with 3rd and 10 from the 28, and a holding penalty pushed them backwards to the 38, and an incomplete pass would end up bringing out the punting unit on 4th and 20 from the 38 as they punted the ball, as they didn't trust Santos to attempt such a long field goal. It would have been a 55-yarder, but instead they punted it, and so now the Raiders would take over with less than a minute left before halftime, the ball on their own 20. And on 2nd and 5 from the 25, Derek Carr hit James Jones for a 9-yard reception and a first down at the 34. The Raiders then took their second timeout of the first half. And on 3rd and 1, Latavius Murray ran at 3 yards for the first down that brought the ball to the 46. Derek Carr ran up to the line. He spiked the ball as it was now 2nd and 10 on the Oakland 46. Derek Carr then went to Holmes. Holmes picked up 13 yards on the first down that brought the ball to the 41. Derek Carr then passed the ball to Michael Rivera. The tight end picked up 6 yards, and that brought it to the 35. An incomplete pass now would make it 3rd and 4. And with just seconds left on the clock, out would come Sebastian Janikowski to attempt a 53-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and the Raiders get on the scoreboard with the final play of the first half that made the score now Kansas City 10, Oakland 3 at halftime. So now to open up the third quarter, the Raiders would start with the ball first, trailing by 7. They had the ball on their own 20 to start their possession, and they would go 3 and out on their first possession of the second half. So now the Kansas City Chiefs would take over on their own 27 after the punt, with about 14 minutes still left in the third quarter. And on 2nd and 6 from the 31, Alex Smith hit Travis Kelce for a 3-yard reception, but he was blown up by Ross. Ross forced the fumble. It was recovered by Wilson. And so now the Raiders would take over in the red zone on the Kansas City 15 to begin their possession with just over 13 minutes left in the third. But on first down, Derek Carr was sacked for a 4-yard loss by Howard and Walker, and that would bring them back to the 19. They would pick up 4 yards with a run by Murray, but an incomplete pass would end up bringing out the punting unit. There was actually a holding penalty on the play, but it was declined. And so now Sebastian Janikowski would come out to attempt a 33-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and the Raiders cut the Kansas City Chiefs lead to 4 with the score Kansas City 10, Oakland 6. And now the Chiefs would take over on their own 30 with about 11 and a half minutes left in the third. They were faced with a 3rd and 5 from the 35. Alex Smith hit Dwayne Bowe for a 21-yard reception that brought the ball across midfield and into the Oakland territory at the 44 for the first down. They were then faced with a 2nd and 18 after a penalty, and Alex Smith hit DeAnthony Thomas for a 5-yard reception. There was a roughing the passer call that would now make it a first down on the 32. So now, on first down, Smith went to Wilson. He picked up 10 yards and a first down on the 22. And a penalty of offsides against the Raiders would make it a first down in the red zone for the Chiefs at the 17. DeAnthony Thomas ran for 8 yards, and now it was 1st and goal on the 9 for the Chiefs. Jamal Charles then ran for 6 yards, and on 2nd and goal from the 3, Knile Davis punched it in from 3 yards out to extend the Kansas City Chiefs lead to 11 with the score Kansas City 17, Oakland 6. So now the Raiders would get the ball with less than 7 minutes left in the third. They had it on their own 24, and there was a mess up on the snap. It ended up just being a fumble, and it was recovered by Zombo. So Zombo recovers for the Chiefs, who now took over on the edge of the red zone on the Oakland 21 with 6.5 minutes still left in the third. Then on 2nd and 9 from the 20, Alex Smith drops back to pass, and he finds the tight end Travis Kelce for a 20-yard touchdown pass. As now the Chiefs extended their lead to 18 with the score Kansas City 24, Oakland 6. And this had been, a 4-point game just earlier in the third quarter, but now it was an 18-point game as the Chiefs took advantage of opportunities, and now the Raiders would get the ball back on their own 18 with still 5.5 minutes left in the third. They would pick up a first down, but they ended up punting after 5 plays from their own 36. So now the Chiefs would get the ball back on their own 30. And on 2nd and 8 from the 32, Alex Smith was sacked by Lumpkin. So Lumpkin with the sacks, and that would make it 3rd and 10 from the 30. Out of the shotgun, Alex Smith dumps it off to Knile Davis, and Knile Davis dinks and ducks and takes it all the way 70 yards for the touchdown. As it was now a 25-point lead for the Chiefs. As it was now Kansas City 31, Oakland 6, as the Chiefs were starting to run away with this one in the 3rd quarter. So now the Raiders had the ball with 2 minutes still left in the 3rd. The ball on their own 20. They would go 3 and out and punt it back to Kansas City. So the Chiefs would get the ball for one last play in the 3rd. It was a first down on their own 48 after the punt. Smith hit Sherman for a 1-yard pass, and that brought the 3rd quarter to a close. And after 3 quarters of play, the score was Kansas City 31, Oakland 6. So now to begin the 4th quarter, the Kansas City Chiefs had the ball on their own 49. It was 2nd and 9. Smith ran for 8 yards, but after not picking up any yards on 3rd down, out would come the punting unit on 4th and 1 from the 43 as they punted it to the Raiders. The Raiders now took over, backed up against their own end zone on the 7-yard line with 13.5 minutes left in this game. Mojo, Maurice Jones-Drew ran for 7 yards to bring it out to the 14, but on 2nd and 3, Derek Carr was sacked by Tamba Hali. And so Hali drops him for 5-yard loss, and then after an incomplete pass out came the punting unit as the Raiders went 3 and out. And so now the Chiefs will get the ball back in Oakland territory on the 40 to begin their possession. They ended up getting a holding penalty. It moved them back to the 50, and they would end up having a punt from the Oakland 48. So they would go 3 and out. And so now the Raiders would take back over on their own 10-yard line with less than 11 minutes left in regulation in this game. They picked up some first downs, and they got the ball across midfield. They made it all the way into Kansas City territory, into the edge of field goal range, especially with a kicker like Janikowski. But on 4th and 5, trailing by 25, they elected to go for it from the 32 of Kansas City. Derek Carr out of the shotgun, hits Butler. He picked up 3 yards, but he was 2 yards shy of the first down, and so it was a turnover on downs for the Raiders as the Chiefs now would take over with less than 7 minutes left to play and the ball on their own 29. They would end up going 3 and out and punting it back to the Raiders. And so the Raiders would now take over with about 5.5 minutes left to play and the ball on their own 12. And on 3rd and 7 from the 15, Derek Carr was sacked for a 9-yard loss as he was dropped by Ford and Martin. And so out would come the punting unit as the Raiders would go 3 and out on that possession. They punted it to Kansas City. The Chiefs took over in Oakland territory after a 22-yard punt return by Thomas. And in field goal range to start this possession, they weren't able to get a first down. And on 4th and 7 from the 29, out would come Cairo Santos to attempt a 47-yard field goal. It was up, and it was no good. And so the score remained Kansas City 31, Oakland 6. And so now the Raiders would take over after the missed field goal with the ball on their own 37 with a little over 2 minutes still left to play in this game. They were able to get the ball into Kansas City territory. And on 3rd and 8 from the Kansas City 43, Derek Carr hit Holmes for a 33-yard reception that brought the ball to the Kansas City 10. And then an interference penalty would make it 1st and goal. They would end up losing a yard. And then another penalty, though, on 2nd and goal from the 2 would make it 1st and goal from the 1. It was an unnecessary roughness penalty. And so on 1st and goal from the 1, Derek Carr hit James Jones for the 1-yard touchdown pass as the Raiders finally get in the end zone in this game, as their points had come from a pair of Janikowski field goals up to this point. But with the touchdown, the score was now Kansas City 31, Oakland 13. So the Chiefs would take over after they recovered the onside kick. So I don't know why they didn't bother to go for an onside kick with how out of range the score was. Like, it's just for practice purposes. But the Chiefs recovered. Daniel would take a knee as Smith was out of the game at this point. And the Chiefs win this game with the final score, Kansas City 31, Oakland 13. And with the win, the Chiefs are now 8-6 on the season, 5-2 at Arrowhead. And the Raiders are 2-12, 0-7 on the road as they remain winless away from Oakland. In this game, Alex Smith was 18 for 30 with 297 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 17 yards on the ground off of 3 carries. Derek Carr was 27 for 56 with 222 passing yards and a touchdown. And the leading rusher in this game ended up being Latavius Murray. He had 12 carries for 59 yards. He also had 17 yards receiving off of 2 receptions. Jamal Charles was the leading rusher for the Chiefs. He had 12 carries for 52 yards, and he also had 1 yard off of 1 reception. Knile Davis had 11 yards off of 9 carries, and he actually was tied with Holmes to be the game's leading receiver with just that 1 reception for 70 yards, that 70-yard touchdown reception that he had. And Holmes for the Raiders also had 7 yards. Andre Holmes off of 5 receptions. Excuse me. Dwayne Bowe had 3 receptions for 69 yards, as did Albert Wilson. He also had 3 receptions for 69 yards. And Travis Kelce had 5 receptions for 59 yards as well as a touchdown. And on defense, the leading tackler in this game was Jamel Fleming. He had 8 tackles. The Chiefs combined for 4 sacks as Tamba Hali and Justin Houston each had a sack. And then Walker, Ford, Howard, and Martin each had half sacks. And the Raiders had 1 sack. Their lone sack was Lumpkin. And there was no interceptions in this game. And so the final score in this AFC West Division rivalry matchup, Kansas City 31, Oakland 13.